Hi guys, welcome to Rootstem, and as part of my ongoing mess up, again, the beginning of this did not seem to record. Thankfully, it has recorded the point where we started to paint it, but effectively with your master Lazarus, what you need to do is to simply spray him Chaos Black. All the model, Chaos Black, just try and leave the backpack off if you can, and if you do like my videos, please like, share, subscribe and hit that notification button if you do want to see more. Alright, so first off, what I'm going to do with this lovely Dark Angel Captain is to mask him off as best as I possibly can using blue tack and parafilm. And what I'm going to do on the outside cloak, I'm going to airbrush on the Carrick Stone. I'm going to try to avoid any of my armour panels as best as I possibly can. So keep your wrappings on, some Seraphim Sepia, and coat the robe. Just trying to avoid any pooling. Don't go too heavy either, because it will be quite, your paint will be quite thin. You don't want it to get scraped off in this process. So a good layer, good finish layer of Seraphim Sepia on the cloth. Okay, so we've let the Seraphim Sepia dry. We've got Carrick Stone back out again. We're going to be lightening this with some Ushabti Bone, and we might have to use the white as well. But we're going to now be lightening the cloak. Now what I'm going to do is I'm picking a direction that I want to lighten it in. So for example, I might want to do that way, simply because I'm going to catch all that, I'm going to catch that, I'll catch that, but I'll leave this bit here. And the same with the front, I'm going to decide which direction I'm going to want to try and catch the cloak on. And I'm going to try and, best way of putting it I suppose, if I try and get something, there's a backpack on that, but I'm trying to catch, hopefully you can just see it. I'm just trying to catch the edge. So I'm not really like blasting it straight at it, I'm just trying to catch the edge of the robe. Let's hopefully see if I can do that. So I'm hoping you can see that. Can you see what I've just done? I've effectively gone back over it again, and we've caught what we want to catch and left the others in recess. That's what I'm after. That's what I'm trying to achieve. And the same with the front. I'm going to kind of aim that way. And we're using about 90% air and a little bit of the actual liquid. And for some reason my airbrush is leaking water, but there we go. Right, I've added Ushabti Bone, a couple of drops of the mix. As you can see, I've back blown it through to make sure that all of the paint is nice and mixed. I'm going to repeat the same process, but I'm going to concentrate now more towards the bottom of the robes. And we're going to do this until we can get a really nice colour going towards the bottom. So basically we're kind of layering and we're blending, but we're blending with an airbrush. So be prepared to take your time with this particular stage and make sure you can get your trigger, your trigger right, because you want, like I say, about 10% paint, 90% air. Next up, we are going for pure Ushabti Bone. So I've emptied it out, but I didn't clean it out. So there's a little bit of the Ushabti Bone Carrick Stone process in there. And we're just going to, again, just trying to catch the edges. We're going to be a bit more selective this time. Now I've added a bit of my Game Air White. I'm not wanting to catch everything, just wanting to catch the extreme edges. So I'm, again, being selective, trying to get it in the same sort of position I was before. And it's like, right, so I just want that, maybe that, and a couple of them little crests. Don't forget that when this dries, it'll dry slightly darker, so you might want to put on a second coat if you want to. Then I'm just going to try and catch those. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to varnish for cloaks. Now, this is simply because we've used a lot of thin paints with a lot of different paints. We want to preserve this as best as we possibly can. So I've got some Mecha varnish mixed with, I've got to put that on the end, mixed with some water. And that should give me a good varnish just to be able to try and set this off. So I'm just going to spray that just all over the cloak areas. Right, so what we're painting next is the inside of the cloak. Now, I've masked off some more with a bit more blue tack and a bit more parafilm, mainly so I can try and make sure that the inside cloak is not going to be affected by what I'm spraying. Spraying it from a certain angle, especially on this panel here, because on that panel I don't want that edge to get any of this paint on. So if I I've added white now, so it's about 50-50, and we're just going to do the same as what we did on the other bit of the cloak. Add a bit more white, repeat, just making sure that you're going further down. Now for the last one, I've emptied it as best as I possibly can, but I didn't scrape the cup out, and now I've put some white in. And basically we're just going to be doing near pure white, because there is a little bit of the grey still in there, but we're just doing near pure white onto the actual model. So we're going to be using Caliban Green base paint from Workshop, and I'm just putting a little bit of water in this, as you can see from there. I'll put it onto a wet palette, and I'll just a little. And the reason I'm doing it on that, of course, is just to try and keep the consistency firm. And we are going to hand paint this one in. Now we will be going back to the airbrush later. At the moment, we're just going to, and you will need a couple of coats, because even though it's a base paint, it's not that thick. I'm leaving the trim because the trim is going to be a different colour, but I do like the idea of having the actual shoulder pad as a dark angel green. Now, I'll be honest, if I had built the figure, this is a commission from a friend, I wouldn't have put this bloody shield on because I hate him. I'm glad a lot of the Primera stuff does not come with these shields on. If I do, I'll chop them off. Painting that green as well. Effectively just be really careful, use smaller brushes if it's something that's in like a really tight spot. And as you can probably see from that, I've zoomed in. You see how it's not the smoothest of paint, so you are going to have to make sure that it's thinned down, and you are going to have to use a couple of coats. You might even have to use 3, but this is a character model, so don't mind spending extra time on it, do we? Right, as usual guys, get cracking. Next up, we've got some Warpstone Glow. Now, I'm going to be very careful. I've masked off as much as I possibly can. Direction is important, so make sure you're kind of coming down, and I'm going to be using about 90% air, 10% sort of liquid, so we're going to in a nice coat and go over it a couple of times. I have covered up the chest. We are going to have to come back in and sort of cut away, and then come back in and do that in a minute. Next step, no, and we are going to coat all of the arm pieces. So, got some Warpstone Green again. This time we're going to be dry brushing, so basically having we're going to be target dry brushing. So we're having a look and we're targeting areas that are more of an edge. So we're kind of doing a cheap version of an edge highlight, as it were. So, but again, just being real careful. So like on the arms, we're just trying to catch those edges. We're not really doing much else. We're just reinforcing a little bit of the highlight colour. But we don't want it too bright. I don't want this looking like it should belong to salamander. So what I'm going to do now is to prep some areas with grey cere. Right, so I'm just going to get that, of course, as always for myself, on a wet palette, just to make sure it's nice and runny. And I'm going to paint like these this rolled section. And you are going to have to use a couple of coats in certain areas. I'm also going to paint his face with this. I'm not using contrast paint to paint his face, but I'm wanting it prepped. I'm also going to paint his eagles. And I'm going to paint the feathers as well on the helmet. Like I say, you'll need several coats. Now your grey is dry, get yourself some apothecary white. Make sure you give it a good shake. Some of these paints really do need a good shake up. Now we're going to be concentrating on the little eagle there. Symbol. Just running it so that you can run into the recesses. We'll be tidying up after. And we need it on the wing. So, Retributor armour. Now, I'm going to be using this on the helmet. Just on these little things coming up here. I've put it into a wet palette to thin it down. There you are. And anything else you think needs to be gold. So I'm pretty much going to be painting the hilt on the sword there. And I'll be honest, I'm going to be doing the trim. Now be really careful when doing the trim because you've got all that airbrushing that you don't want to ruin. So if need be, get a really thin brush or one with a really fine tip and be very, very careful when going around those areas. And this little razor, I can't remember what we call it, like some form of sensor. I'm painting the ball gold and any other keys. But the chain and possibly underneath will be like a brassy bronze. And then you've got this going around his neck. So there's actually quite a bit of gold to do on here. This is before we start looking at any sort of like Agaxer shade, sort of shading, which we're going to be doing in a bit. But make sure you've got all those areas painted, and then we can get on. So as you can see, your white's clear. We are going to be highlighting that, but get this bit done, and then we can crack on with the next piece. Now we're going to add some of the bestial brown. It's leather time. If you've seen some of my previous videos, you know I like to do leather a certain way. Now, this is going to be really, really tricky because one of them is really deep in all the airbrushing that we've already done. So be really careful. Get that done. Get that little bit there on the sword done. And I'll be honest, probably not much else. I mean, you'll need to get that, and I'll probably paint all that as well with the actual brown, but the rest of it, you should be clear. So going into some of your shabby bone work. Now, I need to get a thinner brush out. As usual, wet palette in, making sure we've got some nice smooth paint. And we're just going to paint those skulls that we painted earlier, giving them a couple of coats of this. That's just to make sure that we've got the nice bone colour ready for when we ink wash. So, I actually went and did some Screaming Bell on top bit there, and I went over the chains and of course the hilt of the dagger. And the reason I did that is I didn't really like the fact that it was too much gold. Now we're going on to Scrag Brown. I've got it nice and thin, and we're going to basically just highlight the brown sections. Make sure you got a nice point. And with the circle ones, we're just going to scrape it across. Just a line down there, and then down here, just put a couple of lines in. It's been highlighted. The wash will take care of the rest. So I got first shade. I'm going to be using a small base brush for this because I want proper control. Don't want to kind of go anywhere. But we're going to be painting, well, washing the skulls, washing the brown leather. Just be careful with the brown leather, just towards the cloak. And then of course all the metallics, all the gold and all the brassy pieces, they also need doing. And anything like this on his shoulder, I'm also going to paint with Airbrush. White now as a, apologies for the background noise, white now as a highlight. Just doing it, as you can see I've already done doing it on the feathers, and of course the symbols. Don't forget, we also did that in white as well, so we're just highlighting and making sure they look fine for the next stages. Okay, back to a bit of Rhinox, and, sorry, another figure for testing, and a bit of corn red. We're going to kind of wet blend this handle, so I'm just going to put on quite a heavy lot of Rhinox hide. Make sure we've got a nice solid colour. Make sure you get a whole handle as much as you can. And then I'm going to introduce corn red, mixing up a little bit. I'll bring that in because I don't think you guys can see that, can you? Nope. I can do now a little bit. I'm going to mix it up and kind of tack it further up. A bit more of the red, a little extra tiny bit of water, and then tack that further up as well. When that dries, that should get a nice transition from the brown to the red for the handle. While we're waiting for that to dry, which it won't take long, but I've mixed Yosemite Bone with some white, and we're just going to highlight, not going to highlight the skull, but we're mainly going to be highlighting this eagle on the chest. So next up we're going to have some watered down grace here. Now the reason this is watered down is because we're going to be painting a little bit of these guys, and I need to make sure that I'm getting a slight transparency because I want a bit of that brown showing through. I'm just going to kind of up and down strokes. I don't want to go side to side. I'm just wanting to pick out, maybe side to side on that. I'm just want to pick out the highlights. I'm not wanting to do, using a really thin brush for this. I'm just kind of highlighting this parchment. And same for this here. Now what I'm going to do on this one is just to kind of get across the bottom and top. And maybe just a little bit in the middle. Across the swirls on this side. I think my wet palette's dry now. I should be able to get this done. just make sure that the paint is really thin. Well, not really thin, but thin enough to make it transparent. Now we've got a bit of lead belcher. We mainly don't need to do any lead belcher on this guy, apart from I'm going to do it on the end of the sword hilt, that little sort of stab, well, not sword hilt, the knife hilt, and it's mainly just on the backpack. So just get a suitable brush, make sure to paint the actual backpack, and then when it comes to the sort of exhaust nozzles, just already done it a little bit, you see, just kind of tap it in, and we're trying to keep majority of that still with the green, and then of course the rest with a silver colour. So something a little bit special. This is a very old paint called, well, it's a very old ink called Flesh Wash. Now, what I'm going to be doing with the old ink is basically typing out my type on my purity seals, because it's a really good colour to do it in. I've just watered it down just a little bit, and then I kind of just stab it across with a thin brush. So Necron Compound and Stormore Silver are your next bets. The Necron Compound are dry brushed into here. Stormore Silver, I also dry brushed it into the gold on the backpack. Stormore Silver, we're just thinning down a little bit. And we're just edge highlighting where we can, just to reinforce the dry brush. And I've already done it, as you can probably see a little bit there, on the gold. That's on the backpack. Now, on the main guys, we're mainly just going to be using, because we don't want to ruin any of the work that we've already done, we're just going to be basically using the watered down Stormhorst Silver. And just make sure that you're putting that into all the gold and brass pieces, so tiny bit. Don't do it too much, you don't want it to be looking silver, we just want those edges to pop. Now we have the silver, silver, gold, brass, all of it highlighted. We're going to turn to Lazarus purple. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I'm not bothered. And we're going to be doing the purity seals. So all we're doing with this is just basically dropping, I will thin it down a little bit, but basically just putting it into the purity seals. Now if you wanted to do red, effectively you can do this with some red colours. So Druchii Violet is next, simply to put into, and now just put it into the middle of our now dried purple purity seal. That will give it the recessed shade that we need. Now let's just get a little bit of Gene Stealer purple and let's highlight those seals. Remember, there is those on the backpack as well, and we're just going to put a little tiny bit on the skull in the center, and then some on the out ridges. If you bind it, it'll just dry normally, and that'll look pretty sweet. So one of the next stages is going to be the face. Now I did a whole tutorial on face painting the other week, and I actually used this figure, so this figure's been painted up for that particular tutorial. But the reason I did it separately is because this can be quite a time consuming process, especially if you're wanting to get it really right. The face on this figure is one of the central pieces, so I'm wanting to make sure that the face is perfect before we actually continue. So go back to that tutorial, do the face painting, try and give yourself a bit of practice, because it's not the easiest and it requires a lot of thinning. And there we go, face is done. Right, I'll do the hair in a moment. What next? So I have skipped ahead a little bit. That's mainly so that I can do the hair. I've actually gone and put the Dawnstone Dark Reaper and just blended him up and just giving the streaks as if his hair is actually swept back. And I've also done a little bit of tidying on the cloak by mixing up some Carrick Stone with some Yashavti Bone. Just doing the underneath sections and little bits like that bit there on the inside, just to neaten and tidy. I've been looking at my collection of transfers as well to see what I can actually possibly do with some of these, because I'm not wanting to do a checkered pattern. I don't really like personally the checkered pattern. I much prefer to use a transfer on there and make it more of a symbol. But I also need a transfer that's going to go into the corner of this cloak, because I'm not wanting the red lines, I'm not wanting to emulate that or ruin it. Some of these things are brilliant, but if you ruin it and then you've got to restart again, that would be a big problem for this particular figure. So I think we need to now mask off, and we need to get on with this sword. Okay, so the sword I've masked off, and I've coated the sword in hard coat. And the reason I've done that is because we're going to be using Psychotic Illusions it's a colour shift paint from Green Stuff World. You don't have to follow this bit if you don't want to, but I'm wanting to give this sword a very unique look. And I've masked off so that I don't get any of, there's a bit of a hole there, but hopefully I don't get any of my normal or the other airbrushing and everything else that we've done coated in this paint. Now, if you've ever used this stuff before, you will have to do multiple thin layers just to be able to get it to work. And we are going to be doing a glaze afterwards, so now as drying up towards the hilt, I'm just going to put some Gulliman Glaze Blue. That should change the properties of this sword. Going from like a deep metallic-y blue to this green and let that dry and then unfurl. Now one of the last things to do on here is I've put some corn red into the eye slots and I've left it. I don't want them to look like they are new or on, because of course his helmet is off his head, so I'm wanting to make it look like the helmet has actually been switched off, if I'm perfectly honest. And I just did a little bit of a blue and white dry brush at the tip of the actual blade, and as you can see that blade looks quite sweet now, and it's got a nice transition from the dark to the light coming on. I'm now going to get some transfers sorted. Now transfers, I've done this on the channel before, so basically just go and follow my tutorial and add whatever transfers you want to add. And there we go. I'm hoping this is coming through on there. But we now have a completed Master Lazarus with some of the little details. And I quite like the stubble on his face, it looks good. Right, that's it. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Please like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell if you want to see more. We'll be getting on with the Blackstone Fortress series next, so if you tune in next couple of videos, I suppose it just depends on when battle reports come out, because I've recorded these during the lockdown sessions, but hopefully we'll be able to get 9th edition battle reports on my channel soon. Well, thanks very much for watching. We will see you next time.